the people that reached out this time, um, several of them are not. They haven't been typically involved in these, but and I hope they do show up. That'll be great. Start seeing some new faces and so forth.
Yeah, I know. Normally, often texts me to let me know that you guys are starting, and I was so proud because I was like, I'm gonna beat her this time.
There you go. There you go. Well, very good. I'll give everybody a couple more minutes, and then we'll just kind of go through it and get started, just so we have some recording. Because I do send a lot of these out every week to just people that I wasn't able to do this. I was busy doing that, but I don't want to miss out. So,
Yeah,
various reasons, and that's kind of the whole point of us trying to make this as inclusive as possible, to where everybody, you don't have to be on camera. You don't have to. I mean, you can be out of town doing something else and watch it on a Tuesday night if you want. So
we're here. We're just getting settled.
okay.
We've been out all morning.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, not a problem. Not a problem. I just sort of got my ducks in a row a little bit here too. At least I think. I don't know. I never know until I get going in these things, and then everything falls apart after hitting one slide or something. So you never know.
And we appreciate it every time, so it works out well.
Yeah. No worries. It's kind of a I don't want to say short presentation, but there's not a ton, last week, getting towards the end. I mean, there were some videos that kind of ran on a little bit long and so forth, but it was all kind of all good. Travis, you got to go in today? Are you going in?
No, I have 10 days off from work.
Oh, you are what? Well, then
I don't know how he managed that.
I did.
Yeah.
Well, I don't take vacation days at work, so I literally have 10 days off from work. Well, my mom is visiting, so we are doing all sorts of fun stuff. So it's
well, then let's just go through the whole series today. We'll just do. We got time.
All the time in the world.
We'll just do this every morning for the next 10 days. Call it good.
There you go.
Right. All right. Well, welcome. We're just I was telling Jennifer, there was a number of people that reached out and said, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to be in class I hate to call it class, but
no,
our meet that haven't been in on these things, and so I'm hoping they do. I haven't seen them yet, but
commitment is hard. Commitment is hard.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Anyway, yeah, I'll just kind of get into a couple things. Travis, you and Afton are going to, we kind of went through this before. Very familiar. Not really telling you a whole lot of anything, sharing anything new, but there's new thoughts and new ideas, and stuff has changed since last year, and that's what kind of it's all about, seeing what is going on. And anyway, we talk about canoeing and kayaking. I think we had this conversation a year or two ago, Travis, about what's the difference and how. If you look up what the difference between a canoe and a kayak is, and it's
nothing.
Yeah, really, yeah, it's
nothing.
And it comes down to a few things, and a few things that you and I are aware of, but nobody really talks about too much. And even in these definitions here, you can kind of poke holes in it a little bit. If you talk about canoe, usually open deck boat, doesn't have to be, usually sitting or kneeling, and that's pretty typical. And then rowing position, I'm like, well, when I think about a rowing, I think of oars, and you're definitely not definitely not going to be facing the opposite direction you're going. And but yeah, single bladed paddle, that seems to be pretty consistent too. And then typically in kayaking, closed deck boats. Although we're gonna cover some things today, and you're gonna see open. What about a sit on top kayak? So that you can kind of poke a hole there.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yes, please.
So it's funny because I have worked on numerous lakes and rivers, and they rent everything from kayaks, canoes, rowboats, and I always my one of my biggest pet peeves is when I see a person in a rowboat paddling the rowboat backwards. They are sitting in the wrong direction and trying to push the boat forward, and they're not facing backwards. They literally are like trying to get it's such a bizarre system to watch somebody row a rowboat with the wrong position in the boat. And thinking about with a kayak, I watch. I always we have worked in places. After I've worked in places that are we rent canoes and are used canoes, and the joke always is it's a divorce boat because you paddle with somebody and one person tries to paddle one way, one person tries to paddle the other way. Don't be pointing at me. We call it the divorce boat because it's such a it takes so much communication and understanding that your actions affect someone else. And if you can do it well, it just shows your communication skills with that other person. Because you're going to talk about all this stuff, but yeah, no, canoeing is my favorite thing in the world.
I try to make him go in circles just to drive him crazy.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and on the other side, you get a couple of canoers, especially you start getting into competitive stuff and boats or C2s or something, and you see these two people, in unison and working together, and they know exactly what's going on between each other without just through sheer experience together. And it's really artistry, it really is almost poetic. So yeah, it can go both ways for sure. But going back to the rowing portion, and so yeah, if you got somebody that's sitting like they would be in, say, a canoe, but they're rowing it almost like almost like a river rafting oar boat where you're facing downriver, because you're obviously not going to be backwards to it running an oar raft. But yeah, where you're actually doing a lot of pushing with their oars. It is kind of comical and so forth. But yeah, it's I don't know if there is a really perfectly defined difference between those two. There are a few little subtle basics difference, but it is sort of an interesting sort of definition on that. But speaking of canoes, and obviously canoes have been around for a long time, various different types, different cultures, different places on the planet, and you see replicas. You see, I remember when I was doing some rivers in Costa Rica, and you would see the hollowed out canoes, like the one upper left, they're all over the place on some of these rivers and stuff like that, back way out in the middle of nowhere. And you could tell, the guy got down there with, some hatchets or axes or something similar to that, and just started going away at this big log and making it out of a single piece of wood. So you got a lot of different varieties there, whether it's river, ocean, lake, all different types there. So all different styles of canoes have been around for a long time. And then you start looking at the more modern day versions, your traditional or recreational style canoe. And then you get your whitewater canoes up there on the over towards the left on the top. And then the slalom boats and the sea boats that I was talking about. A C1, which is, and these guys are sitting on their knees, basically they're kind of in a kneel position. And you see the guys over on the lower right, and they're just working together. They know exactly what's going on. The guy in the back knows exactly what to expect from the guy in the front. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, all of these that we've seen so far would be considered canoes. And this is just a little blurb on some of the stuff, and Travis, we can critique and your tear on
Paddling is something I always wanted to get into, and finally I've had the opportunity to take classes. So we did like intro to lake water paddling. Now we're doing intro to whitewater. And it's been fantastic.
Whitewater is, you know, it's a little scary when you've never been in it before. But once you get in there, it's still like intimidating, but man, it's a lot of fun.
Call for some forward strokes, drive into Tim Hortons eddy with what kind of tilt? Left tilt, carve in, get some Timbits.
Yeah, so this course is for folks that have some flat water experience, but now would like to take the next step on moving water.
Thigh straps. You don't want to make it so that you're like attached to the boat, but what it allows you to do is be able to make a lean with just a little raise of your knee.
It's been wonderful. There's like lovely people, it's good weather, it's good whitewater. Getting a lot of practice over and over again has been good.
So we covered the basic paddling skills. Now I turn and my hand comes across the bow and the power face is facing me. And again, I pull in, but now I'm going to exit the water to the bow of the boat. And then we practiced canoe over canoe rescues. You could rescue a boat from the time they flip to getting them back in 15 seconds. And the last part of the day, we spent practicing ferrying.
So it's something I'd never done before, and it's been great kind of being able to build up our skills, like further away from the rapids, then building up to basically being right in the rapids and ferrying across. That's been a really incredible skill that, to be honest, I wasn't really on my radar until I started taking this course, and now being able to do it is pretty awesome. So I'm paddling with Jackie. Jackie's newer to paddling. Her excelling and mastering some of the paddling parts allows me to steer a little bit easier. Memorable parts have been more around like Jackie doing amazing and us working together as a team.
Now I feel like I can actually paddle and control a canoe. It wasn't that pretty early on yesterday.
I think at the end of the day, I want people to have more control of their boats, moving water. And I want them to be able to put their boat where they want to put it. And also, I want them to know how to rescue themselves and be safe if things do not go according to plan.
I feel pretty confident about getting into a canoe now and being able to control it and, you know, trying to get yourself in and out of trouble. So yeah, a lot more confident, I think. I think I'll be doing this more and more.
I feel like I've really grown a lot as a paddler over the last few months, and I don't think I would have gotten this far without some really great instruction. So Jack Pine has been instrumental in that.
Jack Pine Paddle has taught me how to paddle.
Yeah, so that was pretty good basic stuff. Just kind of a few things. Didn't really tell us how to do much, but kind of gave you some examples and some of the things that even beginners without a whole lot of experience can get into and start learning. What are your thoughts, Travis? I'm curious on that.
As I said earlier, I love canoeing. Canoeing, I feel like I can I know you can't, but I can turn a canoe faster than a kayak. I feel like a canoe for me, the way you mentioned the word ferry, and ferry angles, you can literally shoot across a river in seconds just by using ferry angles. The angle of your boat changes how it flows down the river. There's just like, I don't know, for me, there's so much history, so much enjoyment of canoeing than there is for kayaking. I own kayaks and they work really nice and I love to go out kayaking, but I'd much rather go out canoeing. I think you can just do so much. You can carry more weight, you can carry more gear. And it's just something about canoeing is so much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
After we're joking that we spent a lot of time on the Delaware River, which is not any whitewater. There's a couple riffles here and there, but no whitewater. But people go out on the Delaware River and just float down it. And I love that I can watch people paddle their rear ends off to try to hit all the headwinds. and not get down. And I could just sit there and float down, even with headwinds, because I knew ferry angles and how the power of the river works. And it's there's so much. I don't know. Sorry, I could talk an hour.
No, it's and you're touching on a lot of things there that it's so true. Ferrying, which anybody that hasn't really spent a whole lot of time in rivers, especially, is something and it's a lot of these little tricks that's you learn through experience, you learn through people sharing those experiences, and it's all these little tools of how to work with the river instead of working against it, because you don't really stand much of a chance working against it.
That river's gonna win.
Yeah, and so what you're kind of touching on is you got this pretty heavy current. Maybe you got a big eddy on one side of the river and a big eddy on the other side of the river, and you want to go check out the other side, but boy, there's some pretty strong current in between. Well, you can use that, and now you can't use it jumping into that current completely broadside to it. You're going to miss it. But if you can set that ferry angle and maintain that ferry angle, you're just a couple paddle strokes and the river will shoot you across. So just a lot of tricks and working with all these things. And I find whether it's rafting or canoeing or kayaking or surfing, all these water dynamics, I think, all come into play. And ironically enough, my experience in kayaking and my comfortable level in even bigger whitewater really helped with my surfing. Big waves didn't really intimidate me. In fact, I'm like, what could go wrong out here? I mean, it's no big deal. There's no rocks.
There's no rocks.
I'm going to get slammed and thrown around, but I get slammed and thrown around, but I'm still attached to a kayak before. Yeah. And I get danced, out in the waves. I'm just out there wiggling around under, 5 feet underwater until my wetsuit floats me. But so yeah, it's becoming comfortable and kind of going through that process and stuff. It's very interesting, the whole process and concepts on that. What about you, Afton? How's your you got any thoughts on your input on too?
Well, I have lots of experience like paddling down the Delaware on canoes, but I think I like kayaking. I haven't done any whitewater.
Yeah, and it's all relative too, because if it's moving water, to me, it's moving water. It doesn't really, because a lot of these things still come into play, even though you may not have any whitewater or anything breaking the surface. You still have, those ferry angles that you can play with. You have those eddies that will pop up and maybe spin your boat on. It's like, whoa, where did that come from? Or like you were saying, Travis, too, you have a headwind, or trying to figure out the best way to put yourself in that river to where that headwind is not going to affect you and throw you around. So, yeah, all those things come into play for sure.
There was we were leading trips. We were leading trips numerous years ago, and there was a group of other guides that went out on the river and started paddling upriver for 1 mile. 1 mile upriver, because it's a slow flowing river. 1 mile upriver, because the headwind was so strong. They thought that was the way the river was flowing.
Wow.
So they stopped at the next port and they called us on a payphone, because that's what it was. Payphones were around. They called us on a payphone and they're like, we don't think we're in the right direction. And I'm like, you're a mile upriver from where you're supposed to be. And they're like, oh, the headwind was so strong, it was pushing us the other direction.
Oh, wow. Well, that's...
They're like, no, we have an extra 2 miles before our campsite.
That's interesting. Wow. I don't know if I've ever done that one, but that's very interesting.
I remember the phone call.
Oh, that's a great story. That's a great one.
I think one thing that's really important that they touched on the video is learning to up yourself once you have flipped your boat.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a really important thing because a lot of people get on there and then they have no idea how to get back on their canoe or their kayak once they've flipped their boat.
Yes.
So
exactly.
I know Travis did a nice training with me when I first started at my job. Him and another one of our coworkers. We went out on the river and it was me and another girl and they like, okay, flip your boat. So they flipped the boat and then they decided to turn it multiple times. They just kept going and going and going.
Suction. We love the
So
suction.
it was suctioning down into the river. They're like, all right, get your boat back up.
Yeah. And that's very true. Because it is going to happen. It's going to happen.
That's why we practiced it.
And even, in a kayak, it's a little trickier because if you're in an open top, it's pretty easy to, dislodge yourself from the boat. Kayaks isn't always the easiest, especially if you have a spray skirt and you're not really used to that whole process, but it is something that you do have to learn and figure out. Especially in kayaking, I will say a lot what will happen is there's a level of panic that pops in. And so people want to go to the surface before they're completely out of their boat.
Yep.
And now you've actually kind of wedged yourself any harder in their boat, and then you're going to have to go back under and complete the exiting process before you can come up.
Yeah, just practicing wet exits is really hard. People don't understand that a wet exit isn't as easy as you think it is. You have to know how to strip your skirt. You know how to slide your body out of there. You're locked in. Your knees are pressed up against the top of the boat. Like, it's a challenging thing to get out of it, but once you get better at it, the better you get at it.
Sure. And you got a life jacket that's actually wanting to keep you in the boat.
Upside down.
Yeah. So you're kind of fighting a lot of things. But if you can relax and you can just if you can kind of picture exiting, pulling yourself out of, like you're pulling your foot out of a shoe, just kind of pushing off and letting the foot and everything follow, your legs and everything follow. And then once you do that, then come around and make sure you're hanging on to everything you've got, so you're not, now you're searching for all your gear. Grab onto your boat and hang onto your paddle stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
That was the general rule that the job we had that said it was the rule of three: people, boat, gear. That was the order of preference of what you say first: people, boat, gear. Because you can replace gear, you can replace a boat, but you can't replace people. So make sure that person is safe first.
Yes, exactly. All right, so we kind of touched on canoes a little bit, and here's a few different variations of kayaking or kayaks, and kind of start seeing, you get a group there. This is obviously a big.
You're not seeing what you're seeing.
Oh, you're not seeing it?
Nope.
Okay, let me get back here. That's interesting.
Unless you're seeing different types of styles of paddle kayaks. It's not cycling.
Is there a kayaking like big double on this one?
Yeah, we see that. Yes, sorry.
Okay, that's where we're at.
Okay.
So that's just a big double touring kayak, ocean kayak, I guess you can. A lot of lash down points. You can find hatches and things like that inside there, so you take a lot of gear in that too. This one here, whitewater kayaks, doesn't even look like he's in a kayak. You can't even see it. So trust me, there is a kayak there somewhere. This whitewater kayaker, like I said, can't really see what he's sitting in or on. But the point is, the different types of watercraft, whether it's canoe, kayak, and they've got them specialized. Like here's a surf kayak, which basically the base of this thing is almost mimicking a surfboard that you're basically enclosed and sitting in. They're a lot of fun. They're really fast, and they actually do have a fin for them, like a little skeg that kind of keeps that tail end from floating around. Now, some of them do, some of them don't, because you can do a lot of spins and stuff like that on some of these wave faces and stuff. But you can look at that over to the right side of that picture too, and where it's breaking. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of there's a lot of weight and power generated from that. But he's staying out here on the open face and probably having a great time and chasing that seagull. But and then you got sit on top kayaks, which are very versatile. Obviously, don't have the problems with popping out of those if you flip them. Could be more like a canoe exit out of that. And they have scupper holes and things like that to where the water just drains out. So it's pretty, and they're usually a little bit wider, pretty stable. And they have inflatable kayaks, kind of a combination kayak raft that use those for all different types of things. People use them, just go out in the ocean and fish. You can use them on whitewater. You can deflate them, pack them up, and carry them in places. So they've got a lot of versatility as well. Some of the different components of a kayak you can kind of see, and this would be sort of a light touring kayak, not so much going to be whitewater, especially with that rudder or skeg. Whitewater boats are going to be shorter, a flatter bottom to them for turning. This is going to be a lot longer. This is actually designed to track pretty straight. It looks like it's got a pretty decent feel to it. That's going to keep you going in a straight line. But it has a couple hatches to it. It's got some deck lashings. But the cockpit and coaming, you're going to find that on most kayaks, at least sit inside type kayaks.
If you go back to your last picture, you don't have to go back if you don't want to. But if you go back to the last picture,
this one?
Nope, that one you were on.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
One. If you look at a recreational kayak versus a more of a touring kayak or a expedition kayak, the shape of that cockpit, the fact that it tapers in towards the front of the boat, that is so you can fit your spray skirt on and so forth. When it's more of a recreational, it'll just be almost like a perfect oval, which isn't as tapered, and you don't have the room to lock your knees in and do for most of the paddling skills you'll need. So it just makes it a more versatile kayak right there versus a recreational kayak. It's going to have a much wider cockpit, which doesn't make it as agile, doesn't make it as nimble. It's just kind of a little more sloppy in a sense.
Yeah, and so like on that bottom section where it says right there in a cockpit where it says thigh and knee braces, are you talking about that? That's you're going to incorporate those, which you can lock yourself in, and a lot of times you can just by leaning the kayak a bit will help you with your turns, and so forth, and if you have any sort of side wave coming in, things like that can kind of help brace for that. Yeah, exactly. Good point. This is good. This is going to be more of a whitewater style. Obviously, quite a bit shorter, and you can see the rocker on it. So the pivot on this pivot point is going to be right up underneath where your thighs are, and you could really, even if it's on the ground, you could almost take one end or the other and kind of spin that thing. Where the one that we were just looking at, not so much. You're going to have a lot straighter water line or tracking line underneath it. But a lot of similarities, though. You're going to have your seat, you're going to have your coaming, you're going to have your thigh braces, your foot pegs are going to be not so much as far as hatches and storage and things, because you're generally not going to be carrying a lot of gear in there other than probably flow bags and stuff. You're going to feel that. So yeah, exactly. But it kind of gives you an idea what they're going to look like. And they're going to be also made, mostly going to be, you don't see really any fiberglass whitewater kayaks. They shatter. They're going to be plastic, which is a little on the heavy side of a material, but very durable. I mean, you can slide over rocks, you can slam into rocks. They're they really do hold up. Very durable. Some of the other gear. So you got your life jackets or PFD, and this is a lot of this is whitewater. That's kind of a whitewater looking version, although you would see something similar to, even touring, because it's going to be very ergonomic. It's going to allow for a lot of motion, shoulder motion, arm motion, things like that. It's not going to be very restrictive. Helmets. Even though there's not really regulations as far as wearing helmets in rivers and things like that, it's a very good idea. Anybody that has much common sense is gonna, because they're so easy to flip upside down, and now you're you're right there with the rocks, right? So it's always a good idea, and you can get all different types, everything from just a basic plastic helmet to a full face, almost motorcycle looking helmet. And then paddles, various shapes and sizes. Travis has a saying where he talks about, the lighter it is, the more you pay, and durability and lightweight and price. They all, like you said, Travis, you can have two. And that's so true. And paddles are, they get very fancy. The shafts get very fancy. And the more you paddle, the more you start realizing that weight is an issue, design is an issue, and all that good stuff. The two bottom pictures are self-promoting. Those are actually some products I've made in the past. And so, yeah,
there's a brand name on those. I see. I can't see what that
says. Right? Yeah. So yeah, I've made the mitts before, which are kind of a luxury item, I guess, unless you do a lot of very, cold water paddling is.
You're in Alaska. That's phenomenal. If you're paddling through Alaska, the water's freezing. So.
Oh yeah, and what I found is because your hands get wet, but inside there it really shuts down that evaporative coolness of going over, having air going over your wet hands, and it does trap some heat in there. So it makes a big difference. And then spray skirts are obviously a must if you're even touring, if you're going to be out in conditions where you're going to have any sort of water breaking over the bow of the boat or from the sides, and sealing you up between that and getting it down inside. But yeah, there's some of the gear. Now there's a lot of other gear in there, like I was saying, float bags, navigational gear, having extra paddles, there's all different types, and whether it's even navigational stuff. So there's a lot of added, but this is sort of the basics starting out with, and then you kind of build it from there. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the gear, and
Hey everyone, this is Tom here from Aquabatics here in Calgary, Alberta. What we want to do with this video today is look at some of the gear associated with whitewater paddling. Now it's going to seem a bit overwhelming because there's quite a bit involved, but what we can do is break it down. We're going to take a look at all the gear that you really do need to get started off with, as well as some gear that you might want to think about that's going to make paddling a bit more enjoyable, and some of those luxury items that really only come into play when you're doing specific types of paddling or you've got a specific use in mind. So to get into boating, we're going to need a boat. Now these things come in all different shapes and sizes. We've got play boats, river running boats, creek boats, and it's going to depend on where you are in your paddling career as far as which boat works best for you. If you want to get it out on the water, we're going to need to start off with a paddle. paddles come in all different shapes and sizes. And once you have your budget set, there's a few things you want to think about. The length that's correct for you, the type of paddling you're doing, and the type of construction. Essentially, the more you spend, the lighter and stiffer that paddle is going to become. In North America, a PFD or life jacket is a requirement by law for all watercraft users. In whitewater, we generally have two types of PFDs. There's a basic PFD, offers really good flotation, but in a slightly smaller, more ergonomic package. When you move into a rescue PFD, this is more for the advanced paddler who wants to have a few of the bells and whistles that with a bit of proper training is going to make you a better rescuer in the event of an incident on the river. While not regulated by any laws, helmets are crucial to your safety on the river. Now they come in a variety of different shapes, sizes, and budgets in mind. We've got things right from plastic lids that give you really good coverage at an affordable price, up to full carbon fiber lids that protect all the way around your head, including your jaw. Unlike recreational paddling, in whitewater paddling, we really do need to start off with a spray skirt. Whitewater skirts generally have two types of closure systems. We've got the bungee style skirt, which is a lot easier to get on and off the boat, but it does allow a little bit more water through. The other type is a rubber randed skirt. These ones are a much more watertight seal and tend not to come off the boat quite as easily, but they are more difficult to get on. As you progress with your paddling, there's a lot of safety kit that might start to become more relevant to you as you progress into harder and harder whitewater. The first bit of safety gear that you're going to need when you buy your first boat are float bags. Now these are air-filled chambers that are going to fill the void in the back of your boat to make rescuing your boat and yourself easier in the event of a swim. And they're going to protect your investment from sinking or from wrapping around rocks and obstacles. One of the necessary parts of your safety kit is a signal device. In kayaking, we generally refer to that as your whistle. A P-less whistle is great for just communicating on the river or for really getting someone's attention in the event of an emergency. When you're starting out, one thing to consider when you're thinking about dry layers is what goes underneath. These are our base layers. One of the best base layers you can start off with is neoprene or a wetsuit. A wetsuit is a fraction of the price of some of the other alternatives, and it's going to offer a lot of impact protection if you do go for a swim. If you're not going with a wetsuit, you might want to consider some other tops or bottoms. These are generally going to be synthetic material like polyester or polypropylene, or onesies, which are a great fit underneath a full dry suit. Dry tops are a great consideration when starting out kayaking. These, coupled with a wetsuit, is going to offer you the warmth and the protection that you need if you do go for a swim, but do it at a fraction of the price as a full dry suit. In colder climates or areas that have really cold water, one of the best ways to boost your confidence is by thinking about getting a dry suit. And these are really going to help improve your paddling skills by taking away the threat of a swim. You're going to be warm and dry, and this is also a great thing to consider in the event of a rescue where we might be in the water for a really prolonged period of time. right, once you've done a little bit of paddling and you really want to start thinking about the next piece of safety gear, it's definitely a throw bag. Now, this is something that every whitewater paddler needs to be carrying on the river. They come in a variety of different shapes, sizes, and even rope types. What it comes down to is the type of rescue you want to be doing. Are you rescuing your friends, or are you trying to unpin a boat from a rock? All right, now if you're carrying rope in the river, one piece of safety gear that you need to have is a knife. A river-specific knife is going to attach directly onto your PFD. 90% of the time it's going to be used for cutting avocado and spreading peanut butter, but in the case that you need it, you want to make sure it's there and easily accessible. Something you may want down the line are dry bags. These are really important for helping you stay organized on the water. These are waterproof bags that fit easily in the back of your kayak and are great for carrying electronics, camping gear, and a bit of food as well. As you progress into more difficult whitewater, you may want to consider a pin kit as a vital piece of your safety kit for your group. Pin kits are used to unpin kayaks using mechanical advantage when ropes are just not enough. One of the great parts about kayaking is being able to get really into remote places that other people might not be able to see. The important part about that is that we need to be self-sufficient on the river, and having a first aid kit and proper training is a really important part to your group safety. Thanks for checking out our video on whitewater kayaking. I hope you found it really informative and helpful. If you have any further questions or anything seemed a bit fuzzy, we urge you to contact your local paddle sports specialty shop. They're going to help you get that information all dialed in. Thanks again.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a local paddling shop. Even though we have a big paddle sign out front of REI, and like,
They stopped carrying boats.
yeah, it's just, I mean, that's no rip on anybody,
No.
but that is just unfortunate. It bothers me a bit. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there and a lot of things to think about and sort of prioritizing your gear as you're looking at. Unfortunately, especially whitewater stuff is sort of it's kind of a pricey, just to get into it. I mean, you got to have to at least a boat. And now there's used ones out there and you can find it and that kind of thing. And that's how I got into it. Obviously I didn't go in there and, buy a $1,500 kayak just so I can go figure out if I liked it or not. It's sort of a commitment there, and it's a tough one to kind of get into. So, but I think there's ways of doing it.
I just went online yesterday and I've wanted a canoe. I don't own a canoe, which is bizarre for me. But I went on Facebook Marketplace, which you're never going to be. Hang on. Let me see. It's an Old Town canoe, brand new, a 2025 Old Town canoe. That's $100 on Facebook Marketplace. I'm just saying you can find stuff fairly inexpensive.
Wow.
So I might buy that.
And that's the way to go. That is the way to go and do your and a lot of these river shops and stuff like that will sell off their rental fleets at the end of the seasons and things like that. So there are ways of avoiding going out full price retail. Like I said, and a lot of these shops, these river shops, and I think of like Sierra South down in Kernville and some of the Bay Area, especially Sacramento area. There's several whitewater shops, and they have demo days. You can go out there and try, stuff once you get, and a lot of these places will teach you. I'm hoping that, I would love the fact if we could ever get to a point where we had a little bit of a fleet of whether it's river boats or whether they're canoes or whether they're touring boats, that would be fantastic to where we could actually take people out and start showing them how to, what Travis and Afton and everybody, all this stuff that why we love this stuff so much. So, very good. Any other stuff going on that want to add to that, Afton or Travis or anything? I do have one more little video. It's just I just kind of wanted to, we've covered cross country skiing and snowshoeing, and we've covered rock climbing and all these activities and things like that. I just kind of wanted to interject a little other things to think about, is just as sort of a message of what thinking broader than just those activities, and so I threw this, I added this one in.
As people are getting outside in record numbers, the need to put leave no trace skills and ethics into action to minimize our collective impact is more important than ever. To take care of the natural world and practice leave no trace, here's what you need to know.
Know before you go. Look up the areas you plan to visit online or contact the local visitor center. Knowing things such as road conditions, weather, and available facilities is important. Be sure to bring all basic foods, extra water, and a bag to take trash home with you. Packing extra items such as sunscreen, extra clothing layers, a basic first aid kit, rain gear, and a map is always a safe bet.
Let's talk trash. Pack it in, pack it out. Food scraps attract and harm wildlife, which in turn can put people at risk. Pick up all your trash and pack it out, or dispose of it in a trash can. Natural items like orange and banana peels, apple cores, and nutshells can take years to decompose, so pack those out too.
Don't be a party pooper. Pet waste is a health hazard for both people and animals. Pet waste can lead to the rise of invasive species and can spread diseases which harms water, plants, and wildlife that call this place home. Pack out your pet waste. Need to go, but bathrooms are closed? First, walk at least 70 steps away from trails, water, and people. If you have to poop, either dig a cat hole 6 to 8 inches deep, dispose of your waste in the hole, cover it, and pack out your toilet paper. Or use a wag bag, a disposable bag to poop in, found in most outdoor stores, so you can pack out your waste. Better together. We all share the outdoors. Everyone may have different ideas and expectations about what it means to be outside, but we all must be respectful of others we encounter. Let's all do our part to make the outdoors safe, inclusive, and welcoming to everyone. A friendly smile at people you encounter can go a long way.
We'll just move on to a little bit more stuff and share more information, and yeah, we'll just go from there. So yeah, but I'll be happy to send that to you, Michael. And I decided that I'm going to wear a different t-shirt so that it doesn't look like there's just a head sticking out of a wall, camouflage with my backdrop there. So
Awesome.
like, look at this, look at that, just a gradient
out there.
Yeah, it's just a talking wall. I'm doing, so I'm like,
The real talking head, huh?
right, the real talking heads right there. I love it. I love it. All right. Hey, everybody have a great week and 2 weeks, I guess. And yeah, and I'll send these out to a few people. And thanks for joining, everybody. I appreciate it. And yeah, we'll go from there. Weather's getting nicer and stuff. So
Very sad I missed this one. I guess I misread the email wrong.
oh, no worries, Michael. No worries. We'll get you. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Yeah. All right, you guys, have a great week, and we'll catch everybody. And stay safe.
Thank you. You too.
All right, thank you, Jeffrey.
Have a good
Great.
week.
See you guys. Appreciate it.
Bye, Jen. Bye, Shasai.
Bye.